Today I'm going to show you how to make a bracelet to match the Christmas star earrings and necklace pendant that I did in my last tutorial. Now, we will make the exact same components and just attach them with some embellished units of right angle weave and put a clasp on it. The only thing that changes is the fact that I use the thread a little bit differently. We need to use a long length of thread, and we need to leave it on each component so that we can connect our units together and clasp it. Now, I was going to use the same footage for the component that I did in my last tutorial. However, I decided to go ahead and just make the entire video with component and everything with the bracelet today. So if the component part is a review for you, just skip past it until you get to the part where we connect it all together. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Let's look at what we need to get started with this bracelet today. And if you're looking at the earrings and the pendant, that was last week's tutorial, so go ahead and look for that on my channel. And let's look at what we'll need to make this project today. Okay, so what you're going to need for this project today are 11/0 seed beads and 15/0 seed beads. I'm using a Toho in both, galvanized aluminum, silver tone, and starlight, which is a gold tone. Then you're going to use a 4mm Bicone crystal, and I'm using the Swarovski Zillion 4mm for my Bicone. And then you will need a druk. Now, I was informed that I was saying it wrong because it's spelled D-R-U-K. I speak English. In English, it's druk. But I was told it was wrong, and now I cannot resist the temptation to say druk. So, if I do that, I'm sorry, but I just can't resist the temptation to do that. Anyway, thank you for correcting my terrible pronunciation. A lot of things I don't pronounce correctly. However, you know, I'm human. Anyway, then after we have our 4mm round, which is a druk, then we are going to need 3 14mm round Rivolis, and I am using Swarovski 14mm round clear crystal Rivolis. Then we'll need a clasp. I'm using this little slide log type clasp today because I want it to lay kind of flat, and this seemed to kind of fit the bill. Now you can find these online, and I actually found a little package of them at Walmart of all places, and I bought them because they just were exactly what I wanted. It's a little chintzy, but I think that you can find them online a little bit better quality. It isn't terrible, it's just not great. It's kind of lightweight and flimsy. Anyway, then you will need a full wingspan of Fireline on your beading needle, and I'm using a size 10 English beading needle, and I'm using 8-pound Fireline. Now you're going to need several yards. We're going to make 3 components first and then connect our components together. Now for each component we are going to need a full wingspan of thread so that we will have thread left over to connect them together. So don't cut off your working thread and use a long length. And let me readjust and we'll get started. So place 24 11/0 seed beads onto your thread and bring it down to the end of your thread as I have already done. Count your beads twice. Make sure you have 24 because it is important. Once you get it to the end of your thread, you don't have to leave a really long tail. I know I said in my other tutorial that we would be leaving a long tail for the bracelet, but I have since totally revamped my design, so we do not need to do that. So now we're going to come back up from the tail side. We're going to come up a couple of these beads that we just added onto our thread. We're going to hold on to our tail and just pull the working thread around. Move these back down. And just pull your beads into a circle like this. And then we will sew all the way around all of these beads until we get back to where our tail and our working thread meet. Once we have worked our way all the way to where our thread and our tail, our working thread and our tail are together, then we will tie a little knot with the working tail and with the working thread and the tail. Boy, I just cannot talk today. My hands seem to be very shaky this morning. Oh, coffee, coffee. Anyway, I'm going to tie a couple knots like this. Make sure that you don't tie them extremely tight together because we need to work between these beads. But they should not have any slack in them either. And then we are going to sew away from our knot a little bit. So I'm just going to pick up a few beads. It doesn't matter how many. And I'm just going to come out somewhere. It doesn't really matter. I just want to get away from my knot for the moment. Now we are going to begin doing our netting so that we can encapsulate our Rivoli. So how we're going to do that is we're now going to pick up onto our thread 2 15-0s and 11-0 and 2 15-0s. So this is what you will have on your needle. And then we're coming out of this bead right here. We will count not the bead we're coming out of, but the 3 in front of it. 1, 2, 3, and skip them and go into the 4th bead. And then we'll just pull the little loop we've just made down to our circle. Again, you will pick up 2 11-0 seed beads, or excuse me, 15-0 seed beads and an 11-0 and 2 15-0 seed beads, like this. And then we're coming out of this little seed bead here. We're going to count 1, 2, 3 in front of it, and then we're going to enter the 4th in our circle. 1, 2, 3. And go into the 4th one. And then we will do the same thing again. And we will just continue this all the way around our circle. When you get to the last one, you will go ahead and pick up your 2 15-0s, your 11-0, and 2 15-0s. And then we're coming out of this bead here. We're going to skip 1, 2, 3, and then that will bring us into the first bead we started with when we started our netting. So we're just going to come through that bead right there. Pull it down tight. Now we need to start our second round of netting, but that means we have to step up. So that means we're coming out of this little 11-0 here. We need to go into the little 15-0s and exit the 11-0 on our first little peak of netting. So we're going to just go up the 15-0s and exit the 11-0, just like this. And now we're going to do another round of netting. So we're going to do exactly as we were doing, except for now we'll work from 11-0 to 11-0 in the top of our peaks of our netting. So we'll pick up 2 15-0 seed beads, an 11-0 seed bead, and 2 15-0 seed beads. We're coming out of this 11-0. We're going to go into this 11-0 over here, into the very next peak of our netting, and pull. And again, we are going to pick up 2 15-0 seed beads, they're arguing with me again, an 11-0 and 2 15-0 seed beads. Now we're coming out of this 11-0, we're going to go into this 11-0 and pull. It'll start to cup up a little bit, and that's what you want. So your tension should be tight enough for that effect to happen. And go ahead and do this all the way around the entire circle of the first layer of netting that you have already created. Now when we get to this point where we have one more netting to put together here, or actually 2 more, but go ahead and slide your Rivoli in and just kind of pull your work around it a little bit. Just hold on to it. It's not going to stay in at this point. It's not tall enough, but we'll just hold it there. And then we'll go ahead and pick up 2 more 15-0s, an 11-0, and 2 15-0s. We are coming out of this 11-0 here. We're going to go into the next peak 11-0. Remember, you don't want to include the 11-0s that are down lower, just the peak 11-0s. And this is our very last one in this round. So we are going to pick up 2 15-0s, that's 11-0, 2 15-0s, an 11-0, and 2 15-0s. I'm coming out here. I'm going to skip this one down in the bottom and go into this one here. And then, as I do this, I am going to go ahead and slide up into the 2 next 15-0s and the next 11-0, so that I have created a step up at the same time that I am finishing that round of netting. And now I am prepared and ready for my next round. And in this round, we are going to now tighten our netting around our little Rivoli. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to reduce our beads. We're going to pick up 1 15-0, 1 11-0, and 1 15-0. We're going to skip this little 11-0 here and go into the next one. This one is actually lower. It's just with the Rivoli in it, it's harder to tell. So we're still working in the peaks. It just isn't quite as clear. So go from peak to peak in your 11-0s and pull. And again, pick up a 15-0, an 11-0, and a 15-0. And then we will skip this 11-0 and go into this one right here. We have our tail in the way, all that good stuff. Okay. If your netting pulls a little bit, just make sure to tighten your tension as you do it, because it will happen. And you don't want to pull your netting all apart. It won't be pretty. Pick up pick up a 15-0, an 11-0, and a 15-0. Skip this 11-0 here and go into the next one. Your work will start to get a little bit easier to hold as we finish this round. So 15-0, an 11-0, and a 15-0. Skip this 11-0 and come into the one on the peak. And pull. And now it's starting to tighten around my Rivoli. And I don't have to balance it quite as much. So then a 15-0, an 11-0, and a 15-0. We're coming out of this 11-0, we'll skip this 11-0 and go into this 11-0 right here. And pull. And now we just need to do from this 11-0 to this 11-0, and then we will sew around all the beads we just added to tighten them and secure them. So 1 15-0, 1 11-0, and 1 15-0. We're coming out of this 11-0 here. We're going to skip this one, and we're going to go into this one right here. And as I do this, I will include my 15-0, my 11-0, and my 15-0 on my next one too, on my first reduced netting stitch. And this is what you should have. It should be tied around your Rivoli now. But we need to secure it, so we're going to sew all the way around all these beads we just added, including the 11-0s we're anchored to, all the way around this entire round. And as you do this, you will pull and tighten everything. This will spread out your netting over your Rivoli, and it will secure everything a little bit better. It'll get tighter as you do it and a little bit more difficult to get into the beads. Just be patient, you'll get them. When you get all the way around, to the very first 11-0 that we started in, we'll tie a little knot just to secure our netting so that it doesn't fall off the Rivoli at all, and nothing moves around as we embellish our netting. So I am just going to go right under this little thread bridge here, try to avoid my beads, and tie a little half hitch knot. Pull it down tight, and this is what you should have. Now, I'm going to turn it back over. We are coming out right here. We've tied our knot right here. We're going to slide up into these two little 15-0s right there, right above our knot. And we are going to go into this 11-0 right here on the edge of our Rivoli. And this is where we will start to add our embellishments. And we will begin with a 15-0, a drook, and a 15-0. So you'll use your 4mm round bead, whatever it is you've chosen, whether it be a pearl, whatever. And then we will go from this 11-0 that we're coming out of into the very next one right here on the edge of the Rivoli. And we will pull our 15-0s and our 4mm round down, just like this. And this is what that looks like. And now, whoops, excuse me, I'm just going to turn it back over. It's just easier for me to see. So now I'm coming out here. I need to do the exact same thing, and we'll do it all the way around the Rivoli. We'll pick up a 15-0, a 4mm round, and a 15-0. We will slide from 11-0 to 11-0. And we will continue doing this until we've made it all the way around our Rivoli. When we get to the last one, go ahead and pick up your 15-0, your 4mm round, and these are arguing with me too. It's one of those mornings. And we will just slide into our very last one and avoid the embellishment on the other side and just pull it through like this. And this is what you will have so far. And then we need to move up into these 11-0s on top here because that's our next embellishment. So we're coming out of this bead this way. So I'm going to go up these two little 15-0 seed beads, and then I'm going to go into the 11-0 right here on top. I'll give you a real close-up so you can see. Then I'm going to back off so that I can stay in frame. And we're going to pull our thread up through this 11-0 seed bead and the 15s beneath it. Now we are going to start adding our crystals to the top of our little thing here, of our little Rivoli. I'm going to go ahead and cut off my tail because it's pretty secure now and it's just going to get in my way. So now I'm going to pick up a 15-0, a 4mm Bicone, and a 15-0, like this. And I am going to go from this 11-0 into this 11-0 right here and stab my finger. Yay, that was fun. Just like that. And we're going to do that all the way around now. Your first one that you add is going to be a little funky, so just kind of mess with it until you get it laying to where it doesn't look all strange. And then pick up a 15-0, a Bicone, and a 15-0. And you're coming out of this 11-0, we'll go into this 11-0 right here, the very next one in our netting. And we'll just slide right through it. And bring our Bicone crystal down tight. Arrange them, make sure they're pretty, and do it again. And we will do this all the way around our entire circle. When we get to the very last embellishment, we'll go ahead and pick it up, and we'll just slide through the very next 11-0 right here, the one that we started our embellishments in, and avoid all the stuff on the other side. Now we need to pull. Make sure you pull your thread straight. These crystals are really sharp. So are the little metal seed beads I'm using. So I want to make sure that I pull straight and not up, or we'll break our thread. Now we're coming out right here. Our embellishments on top are all secure. Make sure they're nice and tight. You can go ahead and tie a little knot if you'd like to make sure they stay tight. I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to go down into these two little 15-0 seed beads right here, right underneath this 11-0 that I am exiting. Just like this, and I'm going to pull. And then I'm going to secure my top beads again. And then I'm going to go into, I'm coming out of these two 11-0 or 15-0s right here. I'm right in front of this little 11-0 right here. So I'm going to go into it, the 15-0 right here, and then into this drook like that. And then I am ready to start my next step. This is what I have so far. So the way we're going to do this now is we're going to do little units of right angle weave from the 4mm round right here. So we are going to use it in our unit, so it'll be our fourth bead. So we will pick up a crystal, a 4mm round bead, and a crystal, just like this. And we're coming out of this side of the drook here, so we're going to go into the opposite side and pull. And now we need to tighten up our little unit here, so we're just going to sew back through it. And we're going to sew all the way around, come through the bead we're attached to on our Rivolis, and then up through the crystal on the other side. Oh, my thread. There we go. So I'm going to go back through the bead that I'm attached to, and then I'm going to come up through the side crystal right here. And this is the bead I will work out of to move over to my next unit. Now we know our units, we can't connect directly over here, it's too far away. So we're going to create a little bridge over to the next unit, and it also creates the ray of our star. So we're going to pick up 4 11-0 seed beads, just like this. This will bridge us over to this bead. So we're just going to go directly, we're going to avoid the little 15-0s on either side, and we're going to go directly into our next 4mm round bead on our Rivolis and pull, just like that. And now we need to make our next unit. So we will pick up a Bicone crystal, a 4mm round bead, and a Bicone crystal, like this. And then we're coming out of this side of our drook here. We're going to go on to the other side, and we're going to avoid the 15-0s, the 11-0s, everything that's around it. Just go directly into the bead, just like that. And now we need to tighten the little unit we just added. And sew all the way back around until we're coming back out of the side bead right here. So I'm just going to sew through all of them. And then I'm going to go back into the bead I'm attached to on the Rivolis and pull everything tight. And then I'm going to come back up through this crystal here, because this is the bead I need to use to bring myself over to my next unit. And we'll create our bridge for 11 seed beads onto our needle like this. We're coming out of the crystal. We'll go directly into the next 4mm round on the Rivoli and just into that bead, just like that. And we will do this all the way around. When we get to the last one, I'll show you what to do next. Okay, when you get to the last one, go ahead and put your embellishment on. And sew through it just like you have been doing. And secure it. And then come up through the crystal. Oops. Then add your 4 11 seed beads for your bridge. And we will just go directly into the very first unit we started. So we'll go into the connecting bead right here and pull. Okay, so now we are coming out of the little drook right here. And we need to put an embellishment on top of these little rays. So the way we're going to do that to position ourselves is we're going to go up we're coming out of the drook, we're going to go up the crystal next to it. We are then going to slide down these little 4 seed beads in our bridge. Just go down all 4 of them. Avoid the little 15-0 down there by the drook. Now, we originally attached the drook. We're not going to do that this time. We are going to go directly up into the crystal right above the bridge that we're exiting. Just like that. Now, don't pull it tremendously tight to where you pull things out of place, but tighten your thread a little bit, and then we'll start our embellishment. We will pick up a 15-0 seed bead, a 4mm round, and a 15-0 seed bead. Just like that. We are coming out of the top of this crystal right here. We're going to go into the bottom of the crystal across from it. Just like this. Let me back off just a little. And we will pull that embellishment down tight. Just like that. And now we need to get over to this one to embellish it. So we will travel down all of our seed beads here, our 11-0s, and just exit the bottom 11-0 of the bridge. And then travel up the bottom of the crystal right above the bridge. Just like this. And pull. And then again, we will pick up a 15-0 seed bead, a 4mm round bead, and a 15-0 seed bead. We're coming out of the top of this crystal. We're going to go into the bottom of the crystal across from it and lay our bead diagonally across the ray of our star. Just like that. We're going to continue doing this all the way around the entire piece, and then we'll be back. Okay, so I have put my last embellishment on, and I'm coming out of the top of the crystal after putting on my little crisscross embellishment here. Now I want to straighten this one out because I'm going to add a little unit here that we'll be connecting our bracelet together with. So what I'm going to do is I am going to pick up a 15-0 seed bead, and I'm going to come down through the top of the 4mm bead here. Just like this. Now this looks kind of weird and thready, but it's very, very magnified too, and you won't see it nearly as bad as you do on my film here. through the naked eye. And just kind of pull it straight up like this. And then we're going to pick up another 15-0 seed bead, and we're going to come down into the attaching bead to a Rivoli here and just go straight through it. Just like this. And pull it tight. And this is what you should have. It just kind of pulled the bead straight. Now we're coming out of the little drook on the bottom here. We're going to go ahead and go up through this crystal again, right here. And then we're going to go through the 4mm round bead on the top here, underneath our embellishment in our original unit. And then we're going to pick up a 15-0 seed bead and a 4mm round bead, these beads are just really arguing with me today. I don't know why. And then a 15-0, a 4mm round, a 15-0, and a 4mm round, and a 15-0. So what you will have on your needle will be 3 4mm rounds with 15-0s on either side of them. Start with a 15-0 and end with a 15-0. You're coming out of this side of the 4mm round on your piece. You're going to go into the opposite side and pull your thread through. And I'll just make a little unit just like that. Let's back off a little. Now I'm going to sew back through this entire unit to secure it. So I'm going to turn it over just so I can see my beads a little bit better and have it more accessible to my right hand. And I'm just going to sew through all the 15-0s again and all the 4mm rounds all the way around. Until I am coming out of just the attaching drook. I don't want to go through the 15-0 on the other side. Just like this. Then I'm going to turn it back over. So I am coming out of the little drook right here. I am going to pick up a 4mm Bicone crystal, an 11-0, and a 4mm Bicone crystal onto my needle, just like this. I am coming out of this side of my attaching bead. I'm going to go into the opposite side of it. Try to avoid the 15-0s on either side and just pull it through, just like that. And this is what you should have. Now we're going to sew up this bead here and then exit this bead. So I'm going to turn it over again. I'm going to sew up the 15-0, up the 4mm round, into the 15-0, and then just exit the drook on top here. I don't want to go through the 15-0 on the other side. I'm going to turn it back over. And then I'm going to pick up a 4mm Bicone, and I'm going to go just through this little 11-0 in my last stitch. And then I'm going to pick up another Bicone, and I am going to go directly into the top drook, just like this, and pull. Now we have successfully made an entire component, and we will need to make 3 of these exactly like this. Make sure you have a long working thread left and make 3 components, and we'll be back. So once you've got your 3 little units, you'll lay them out, and each extension will be on one side of the units. So what we will do, and a way to organize your thoughts, is this side will be the side that will extend for our clasp, and this side will be the side that will add another extension like these and extend for our clasp. These two will join together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move one aside right now. I am going to put my needle on my working thread of the middle unit here. And I am going to pick up a 15-0 seed bead, and then a drook, and a 15-0. I'm coming out of this little drook right here on the end of this extension. I am going to go into the same side right here on the other unit and pull, just like this. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. We will pick up a 15-0, a drook, and a 15-0, and we will come from this drook here into this one here. And just avoid the 15-0s on either side of the drooks. Pick it up. There we go. So this is what we have. Now I'm going to pick up this entire thing. And yes, my working thread will probably get in my way, so I'm just going to try to keep it out of my way. And I am going to sew around this entire unit I just created so that I can secure it and make sure that this joint is nice and strong. So I'm just going to sew all the way around all of the beads, including the 15-0s. And then when I get to the attaching bead here, I'm just going to go through it and not grab the 15-0 on the other side. Just go through it. I'm going to turn my work back over. And now I'm going to pick up a 4mm Bicone crystal, an 11-0, and a 4mm Bicone crystal. I'm coming out of this side of my attaching drook here, and I'm going to go just into the other side and just the drook, avoiding the 15-0s on either side, and pull my needle through. Just like that. Now I'm coming out of the drook. I'm going to go down into this 15-0 here, and the 4mm round, and into this 15-0 here, and the drook right next to it, but not the 15-0 on the other side. And I'm going to pull my thread through. And then I'm going to pick up a Bicone crystal, and I am going to come up through the little 11-0 between the bicones on our last stitch here. And then I will pick up another Bicone crystal and come down into the attaching drook and avoid the 15-0s on either side of it. There it is. Couldn't find the hole. Okay, and just pull it through. It gets a little bit thread tight. You can use your flat nose pliers if you need to. Straighten everything out on top. Make sure that there's no thread slacking anywhere. And that's what that should look like. Now we're going to turn the piece over, and we're going to sew back through our unit and back through this unit, and then we'll go into this unit and tie off. So we're going to sew. Actually, let's go ahead and grab a knot on this little thread bridge here. Make sure everything is tight on the other side before you do so. And now I've got my working thread for my other unit. There we go. So anyway, I'm going to grab a knot, make sure everything's tight, and go under this little thread bridge right here. And pull my knot down between the beads. And then I'm going to sew up through this unit here. Argue with my thread. And then I'm going to go up into the connecting bead between the two units. And it is a little tight, so I'm just going to pull it through. I'm going to go up through this 15-0. And then through this bead here. And then up through the unit on my component here. Through this bead. Now you can sew through this as many times as you can or you want to. The beads are getting kind of tight at this point, so you can't go through it a whole lot, but you want it to be as secure as possible because this is a connection. So now that I'm coming out this little 15-0 here, I'm going to jump up into this little 11-0 in my netting. Now I'm going to come up these 15-0s here and come up into the middle part of my netting here. And I'm going to tie another knot right between my beads. And secure it down between the beads, just like that. And then I'm going to sew through a couple more beads and I'll just cut my thread off. Like I said, you can sew through as much as you want until you feel like it's secure, and then cut your thread off. And now we have half of our bracelet here. Now we're going to do the exact same thing with our next unit. So go ahead and sew this one on and then sew back down through your second unit. I will show you. Don't cut your thread off. We'll be back after we've connected them. So for a little afterthought here, now you remember when we put these units on, these little extensions, our original ones, we straightened out the bead on the embellishment in the unit that we're attaching to. So I have gone ahead and put my joining unit here of my drugs and sewed around it and secured it, just as I did here when I was adding my two components together. Now I am coming out of this little 15-0 seed bead here, and I am going to go up into this bead here because previously I did straighten out this component here and this component here on my components before I added them together. This one I have not, and I didn't show you to do that, so you probably have not either. So what we're going to do is we're coming out of this little drug here now. So we are going to go ahead and pick up a 15-0 seed bead, and we're going to go into the embellishment on top of the component here. Go into the little drug right there and pull. And then we'll pick up another 15-0 seed bead and we'll go down into this druck here. We're coming out here. We're going to go into this side because we already have a bead on that side. So a 15-0. And we're just going to come straight through the drook. We are not going to go through any of the 15-0s next to the drooks. Just like that. Now that I've done this, and I've already got my attachment here, I can sew up this crystal right here. Sew into this drook right here. And I can add my embellishment on top of this unit that connects my two components together. So I will pick up a Bicone crystal, an 11-0 seed bead, and a Bicone crystal. And I'm coming out, let me get my other working thread out of the way here. I'm coming out of this little bead here. I'm going to go into the opposite side of the 4mm round bead I'm coming out of and avoid all the beads on either side of it and just pull my thread through and anchor my little beads on top of the new unit right here. And now I am going to sew down through the 15-0 and the 4mm round on this side. I'm coming out of the main drook, the connecting drook. I'm going to go into these beads on this side of the unit. And then I'm going to go into the 15-0 and this connecting drook right here. And make sure I don't go through any 15-0s or anything on the other side. And then I am going to pick up a 4mm Bicone crystal, and I'm going to come through the 11-0 in between my crystals from my last stitch, and then I'm going to pick up another crystal, and I'm coming out of the 11-0, I'm going to go into the connecting drook again. Again, it's getting slightly tight. I'll just pull it through. That wasn't too bad. Just pull it through. And then I have my connection. So now I need to get over to this side of this bead or this component so that I need to get into this part of my component right here, this drook right here, so that I can make my extension for my clasp. So I'm just going to sew up around my work until I work my way all the way over to this bead. The easiest way is going to be to work on the outside of the beads. So I'm coming out of the connecting drook here. I'm just going to go up into this little 15-0, if I can find the bottom of it, and the drook here. And then I'm going to come through this 15-0 right here, and then through the connecting drook one more time. I'm going to come through this crystal right here, and then through this drook and the 4 11-0 seed beads in our bridge. If you can get them all at once, you might not be able to. I don't seem to be able to, so I'm just going to do this. And then I'm going to come up through these 4 11-0s, which could be a trick. Let's see if I can do it. Right through these 4. Then I'm going to go down into the crystal, into the drook, and then up the 4 into the crystal, down through the drook, up the 4, all the way until we get to this one. And once we get there, I will be back. Now I have worked my way all the way over until I'm just coming out of the little thread bridge here right next to the bead where I want to attach my extension for my clasp. So what I'm going to do, I can't just hop straight over to this drook. It won't look right. There'll be a whole bunch of thread right there. So I need to go down this crystal first. And then I need to go through this drook here, the attaching drook, and I'm going to bring my needle out in front, okay? Now, I already straightened out this unit right here, this little bead, by adding my 15 O's and sewing through. At this point, you will need to do that if you haven't already done that. I prepared them earlier and did that without including it in my video, and I apologize for that. However, all you have to do is do the exact same thing you did on all the rest of them to straighten out your little bead on top here. And of course, if you don't want to, you don't have to. It's not that obvious. It's just something that I think kind of balances out the look of the bracelet. Okay, so now we're coming out of this connecting bead right here. We're going to slide up this crystal. And if you, like I said, if you need to put your top one on, do it now. And then end so that you are in this top drook up here. So I'm going to slide up this crystal here. And then into my drook. Now, I'm going to start adding more of these little units, and I'm going to add as many as I need for the length of my bracelet. Now this goes, let me back off. This goes pretty much around my wrist, so I need to make probably 3 or 4 units. So what I'm going to do is I want to be about 1 inch short. So I'm going to make a couple units, and then I'm going to measure it around my wrist, and then I'll put on my clasp. Now, to make about an 8-inch bracelet or a 7.5-inch bracelet, a 7-inch bracelet, I would say you need to add at least 3 more units. So I'm going to go ahead and add 3 units on this side. So how I'm going to do that is just like we've been doing all along when we add our little extensions. We will pick up a 15-0 seed bead and a drook, and a 15-0 seed bead, and a drook, and a 15-0 seed bead, and a drook, and a 15-0 seed bead. Just like this. Now, we are coming out of this side of our drook, so we're going to go into the other side of the connecting drook and pull everything tight, just like that. Now we're going to sew around this entire unit to secure it. And when we get down to the connecting bead, we will add our embellishment on top. Then we'll sew up and add another unit. So here we are coming out of the connecting bead right here. We are going to pick up a crystal, an 11-0, and a crystal. Come here, come here. And we are coming out of this side. We're going to go into the opposite side of our connecting bead here and push through. And this is tight too. They're not horribly tight, but they're getting tight. So just keep your little flat nose or your chain nose pliers close by so that you don't have to break your needles and break your hands and everything else trying to get it through. And once you get it through, then you're going to sew up the unit again through the 2 15-0s, through the drook, through this 15-0, and not the 15-0 on the other side of this 4mm round bead. Now, we will do the same thing again. We'll pick up a crystal, and we'll go through the 11-0 right here. And then we'll pick up another crystal and come through the end drook, just like this, and pull it tight. Now, You're going to go ahead and add as many units as you need here. I'm going to do like 2 and see what it looks like on my wrist, imagining that the other side has the same amount, and leaving enough for my clasp. My clasping is going to take up about 1 inch. So you'll keep that in mind. When you get as many units and embellished as you want, and when I get as many as I want, we'll be back and we'll put the clasp on this side. Okay, so I have decided to make 3 little units of right angle weave embellished before I put, for my extension before my clasp. So now that seems to be about right for me. I'll find out as soon as I get this going here. I'm going to take my little clasp apart here now. And just actually, I'm going to leave it together. And that way I won't lose half of it. I'm going to attach my clasp now. So it depends on which way you want your clasp. I'm going to do this side. And I'm going to pick up, I'm coming out of this little drook after doing my last unit here. And I am going to just pick up 2 15-0 seed beads. And an 11-0 seed bead. And drop them down. And then I'm going to go through the little hole in my clasp right here. Now this is my slide half. No, it isn't my slide half. It's the main half. So I'm going to go right through here. And then I am going to go through this 11-0. And just the 11-0. And I'm going to pull this tight down against my units. I don't want it floppy and loose. I want it to be as close as I can. So I'm going to have it as close as I can get it there. And then I'm going to pick up 2 more 15-0 seed beads. And I'm going to come through the last unit again, the bead in the last unit on the opposite side that I have been working out of. Just like that. Let's get you close so you can see exactly what I just did. Now I am going to sew back up through these beads, around my clasp, back down through the 11-0, through these beads, and through the drook. And I'm going to do that, 4 or 5 times, how many times I feel like I need to secure my clasp. And then after you've done that, you will make your units on this side using your reserved working thread from your last component. After you have made the units to match this side over here, then you will take your little clasp apart like this and attach this side. And then we will be back. Okay, so I went ahead and attached and secured my clasp on this side. I had made 3 units of the extension and attached my clasp, and then I went to the other side, attached my needle to my working thread, and I made 2 units of extension on this side because I found that it was a little too small if I only used 2 on each side, and a little too big if I used 3. So I just used 2 on one side. That's the benefit of being a designer. You can do whatever you want. Ha ha. Anyway, so that's what I did, was I went ahead and just put 2 on this side. And then after I attached this side, I sewed through my units and tied off. After I attached this side, I went ahead and sewed through my units and tied off with that thread. So this is the end result. And I will show you what it looks like on. And this is what it looks like on the wrist. It's really quite pretty, and it goes well with the rest of the set. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and that you'll go ahead and add a bracelet to your Christmas star set. Have a good day. Bye-bye.